welcome to Sitecore Standard Values Podcast. I am your host, Rick Bauer, Director of Customer Transformation at Sitecore. In this podcast, we will continually seek to provide deeper insights into the value of Sitecore as a solution to business problems. With regular episodes from me in the U.S. and my counterpart Sultan in the Netherlands, we will alternate to bring you a variety of guests to share their global perspectives and experiences through a rich tapestry of discussion, opinion, and thought experiments. My guest today is John Price, Global Sitecore Practice Director here at American Eagle and a multi-year, multi-solution MVP. I have known John for many years and have had the recent pleasure of working with John and team on several customer engagements with our customer transformation team. I do say here because we are in American Eagle's studios where a Sitecore water cooler is produced. This is part 2 of a 2-part series, so if you have not participated or listened to, I like to think podcasting is a participatory sport. If you have not listened to episode 1, find that on Sitecore water cooler, wherever you find your podcasts. John, that's where you hosted me. Again, I encourage you to start there and of course, like and subscribe. John, welcome to Sitecore Standard Values. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Rick. Yeah, so I've been around the Sitecore space for about a decade at this point. Before I got into the Sitecore space, I actually used to be in the golf industry. So I was a golf professional, obviously not a very good one. So I transferred to tech. So background's a little bit more in kind of, you'll say, digital. We used to be in like the dynamic pricing. Then we've made the jump over to full digital. And I was actually American Eagle's first dedicated Sitecore project manager.
Wow.
So learned the ropes through there, have engaged with probably over, I'd say, 75 Sitecore clients over that decade. For the past 6 years, I've been helping manage our Sitecore practice. So that's anything from, we'll say that word, sales, to helping oversee operations. And most of my days now are consultancy and strategy. So I really try to help clients get the most out of the Sitecore platform. Work very closely with individuals like yourself, a lot of the other Sitecore, we'll say, personnel, and absolutely love what I do. Love being in the Sitecore community. And again, thanks for having me, Rick.
That sounds like a fun path. And I can't hear golf and not say, but if we kill all the golfers, got to have a Caddyshack line in there somewhere. Anyway,
there's definitely some days where we definitely want to quit. So we'll definitely say that.
All right. So,
that's great.
The last episode, again, this is part 2 of a 2-parter. We covered off on content, solutions, customer journeys, much more. I'm not going to rehash everything, but I'd like to start this episode talking about data and analytics because I think we didn't really touch on that in the last one. I want to talk about how it plays into digital marketing, as well as trends you are seeing.
Yeah, no, it's a great topic, and honestly, probably one of the largest ones to unpack. So, especially in this new space of Composable, right? You have many different platforms as part of a stack, and you probably obviously have many different platforms taking different data points. You might have a website collecting page views, traffic that could be through the platform itself, or Google Analytics. I'll touch on Google Analytics and obviously the transformation there. You might have email marketing, et cetera. And one thing that we hear a lot when we talk to existing Sitecore clients or prospects is, I need enough data to run my business effectively. And many clients that we've talked to do not have that. So I think the one challenge many have is, hey, we have all these different silos. What do we do? So one trend that we've been seeing obviously for well over 5 years is, picking an analytics platform that can really read out the data, right? All these different platforms can track it, but we really need like a Power BI, a Tableau, a Google Data Studio, or a Snowflake for the actual reporting for a business. Create me a report that's useful for me from all these different channels. So I definitely think that's one area that we like to start in is obviously, well, what do we need to track? But what reports do you need to be able to run your business effectively? Whether it's sales metrics, whether it's how many people sign up for maybe an appointment, or any one of those metrics. So we always start with the business requirements. What do you need to track? What's effective? And then we'll figure out how to track it. The how to track is always the simple part. So, it's what do you actually need to report on? So, okay. We'll definitely say we'll call the BI side of it's definitely extremely important. The other trend and thing that's going on right now is GA4. So everyone's, what do we do with Google Analytics? Obviously, previous is going to be sunset. There's going to be a point in time where there's no access to that data.
Right.
So right now, on pretty much every one of our clients, regardless of platform, GA4, digital marketing, SEO, huge focus, right? Everyone should be focusing on digital marketing, SEO, paid ads, you name it. So GA4 is a huge focus, and I mentioned Google Data Studio, so setting up proper reporting there has also been a huge key to what we've been doing in the space.
it's kind of a multi-headed monster, right? I mean, there's a lot of sources in, there's a lot of potential there. One tool that I've seen out there is Relevant Edge as well. I don't know if you've ever worked with that.
Familiar with the founders. Have definitely examined it. We actually have some clients that use Relevant Edge, so relatively, I shouldn't say relatively familiar with the product and what I've seen it do with, especially Sitecore XP. Definitely very helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the point I would bring up there, and I'm not tied to the solution at all, but other than, I mean, they are a partner with Sitecore, so I should say that. But they, we were talking earlier about spinning things up quickly, and I think that's one tool there. But the GA piece is also, I mean, that's a space to watch for sure.
Yeah, if you're on Sitecore XP and have plans to be on Sitecore XP for a while, and the one thing that we've obviously noticed is you can set things up, you can set up basic tracking, you get basic reporting, but creating custom reports in Sitecore XP not recommended. So you can basically track anything you'd like, but exporting it to a BI tool like I just mentioned, or Relevant Edge provides another layer of advanced reporting and making Sitecore XP very relevant. So it's definitely a great product, especially if you're going to be on Sitecore XP for quite a while.
Yeah, and there's a lot of data underneath that's not exposed until you
100%.
Use those tools. Okay.
Yeah, I definitely think the tracking of data is not necessarily the problem. It's the reporting on it, getting it out to something readable is where most organizations need solutions. So one of those I mentioned, definitely a great option.
Well said. Well said. Let's talk about disruption. We gotta get all the buzzwords.
Digital disruptors.
Yes. Yeah. Right. So this is a buzzword, but one that fuels decisions of organizations large and small. So can you speak to how disruptions are influencing your customers, their solution stack, and maybe even American Eagle, if that's the case?
Yeah, oh my goodness, where do we start? So there's definitely 2 or 3 facets we can talk about. So let's talk about tech, right? We're talking about Sitecore. So the tech is obviously the first digital disruptor and not in a bad way, right? Tech changes, and I think there's a quote from Dave O'Flanagan that he repurposes, tech has never changed this fast and it will never be this slow again or something. It's basically the speed at which things are changing are going to continue to advance. So customers need to be agile. They need to be able to switch out technologies quickly. Switching out things is not necessarily a bad thing, right? It's getting new, making things relevant for the business. So obviously the first one is these front-end frameworks. Headless has obviously been a buzzword, but most software companies are going to more of the headless route, right? Mm-hmm. So you talk about React front-end frameworks. We talk about Next.js, which is kind of a more advanced version of React. So we're seeing a lot of need, especially at the American Eagle side or the client side, to learn these new technologies. There's plenty of really great resources, but learning React, Next.js is kind of the wave, I would say, of the future. Organizations we've even seen using Angular. We're seeing all right, well, now how do we move over to React, Next.js in the kind of the most streamlined way or the least disruptive way. Going back to that, going back to React. So tech is definitely a huge one. Learning those new technologies. The composable side, if we talk about Sitecore and some of their partners like Salesforce, we got 20-some plus products just between those two stacks. And if we intermix them between organizations, you need knowledge either from a partner or in-house to know them. So being able to hire specific or train specific talent, you can't just train for Sitecore anymore. You need to know each of individual platform. So one thing we focus on, what we recommend to clients is don't have one person try to learn all 6. Maybe let's have one learn Content Hub.
Yes.
Let's maybe have one learn Personalize and CDP, right? So being able to specialize people, I think is going to be even more of a need. It's always kind of been a need in like the Salesforce space, but in the Sitecore space, I definitely think that's going to be a huge part of it, too. For sure.
And I would even say there's another angle to look at that, this, and it's more from the external marketing side and the why we need this technology and why we need to accelerate the pace, right? Yep. Consumers are exposed to disruption through things like Netflix, Amazon, all these tools that allow you to get stuff now. Yep. I think you and I both suffer from impatience, and it's just like, what do you mean my order is going to take more than 3 hours? I want it. It's the Veruca salt. I want it now.
Yep.
So, I feel like that is those types of disruptors have certainly caused the need for Composable, because organizations need to be able to evolve at the pace that they want to, not at the pace of a software provider. So they need to be able to build those Lego bricks together like they need in that moment, not waiting for somebody to develop it.
Yeah, 100%. We mentioned the part 1 of the episode of, I think migrating to full SaaS is going to be definitely something that most organizations will focus on in the next 5-10 years. Even healthcare, a lot of these organizations that have kind of strayed away from it, most providers are going to that model. And even things like the Middle East, Gulf region, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, that is going to be in the next few years as well. And again, hearing Dave Flanagan talk at the Customer Advisory Council, the Partner Advisory Council, which I won't name specifics. I mean, that is something that is coming in that region. So it's really going to be affecting the entire world. So migration to SaaS, getting away from spinning up servers, installing Sitecore or whatever platform it is, setting up deployments, upgrading, that word. I definitely think organizations that can get away from that can definitely provide more business value quicker, again, to the customers, getting them what they want. And then I've seen a lot of organizations focusing a lot on self-service, like we talked about, spinning up a customer portal, more advanced intranets, basically a way to alleviate things from internal teams like a contact center. I definitely think are some things that we've been seeing as well as kind of like how people are trying to disrupt, definitely trying to advance their digital and just overall business solutions. And even customers that we deal with, they have like contact centers. It's like, hey, we have all this data internally in different data lakes, but we want to be able to use it without having to go through those internal barriers. So we've seen a lot of clients utilizing a platform like CDP, Customer Data Platform, to basically synchronize all that data so they can use it for their digital channels. So we're seeing a lot of things around data lakes, going back to the data side, of utilizing a platform like CDP to store that data and then use it for all the different types of channels that you may have. So that's been a huge focus as well for us and our clients, what people are coming to us with and problems they're trying to solve.
Okay. Yeah, and I want to come back to that. Because I definitely want to get some more examples from you, so I'll kind of plant that seed. But you're a bit more technical than me, and I want to eke into that space a little bit. So let's talk about the transformation of dev and like dev cycles and how moving from traditional to composable is impacting development, process, tools, approach, things like that. Because you work daily with a team, that sees the pluses and minuses.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and we mentioned this before, is the need for updated documentation. We'll say, I mean, organizations like, hey, we need documentation, but I've seen the lack thereof long term is the updating of documentation, right? When we're installing a large platform like a traditional Sitecore DXP, you'd install it and you're basically making config updates, you're deploying code and data over it. With Composable, we're now dealing with more integrations for things that used to just come in like one platform. So updating how those integrations change, making sure the business is in constant communication with tech on their needs, and then documenting that in like a place like Confluence. There's many other, we'll say, document repositories. I think that is a huge focus as well, even for us as an agency, is it's not just like, hey, make sure you do documentation. It's like, hey, this needs to be updated on a daily, weekly basis.
I think it's a role.
Yeah,
I really
100%.
do. I mean, they're like, you have to have somebody there that's basically a librarian, so to speak.
Yeah. No, 100%. I kind of went back to, or I'm going to go back to my previous point on making people more focused, right? You don't want one person doing 6 different roles anymore, because I think there are gaps there, and having a traditional BA or whatever you might call that person in house, updating that as a crucial role of the team and alleviating it so people can provide just, hey, you write the code, I'll do the documentation. Those segmentation of roles, I think, are going to be vastly important as we get deeper into the we'll say the journey of Composable.
Right. You say BA, I say librarian, because my mind is in the 1950s.
Yeah. I like it.
No, very good, very good. Well, okay, so I promised to come back to this a little bit. Like, let's talk real world. Are there any examples you can talk to around some of like the latest technology from Sitecore, for example, XM Cloud, CDP, so like some experiences that you've had with customers there?
Yeah, sure. Plenty of examples. I mean, if we just start with XM Cloud and kind of the new, that we'll call it the headless route. I think one thing that we like to, one area that we've seen very successful is what we call stack site generation. Increasing speed or performance of sites, getting things to the edge. They're much more easily accessible by browsers and end users. We have one legacy Sitecore client that we're converting them to full composable XM Cloud and personalize over 500 websites in their site tree, right? So all that traffic coming back, hitting your CD servers, your CDN, then obviously all the indexing and things. XM Cloud and stack site generation going to be a huge improvement there, right? Things are pushed to the edge. Pretty much everything is going to be cached. The performance, if we just even go back to the Google side, page speed insight score is going from the 50s to almost 100. It's just the revolution of page speed performance is finally getting there with these technologies. And
Yes.
I think just if we go back to even the end user, them being able to just quickly get what they want, is vastly going to be improved,
And
which is extremely exciting.
That's lighthouse scores, basically.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yep.
And I mean, you think about that from a standpoint of like, well, what does a little bit matter? It's like, well, what if you're on your phone and you like hit a 4G or, it's like you still want your page to load fast.
Well, and that's the interesting thing is like, what also has been a huge change is like, hey, people are used to testing on great networks. It's like, well, what happens if this person is off Wi-Fi with a terrible internet connection? They still may need what they need to get. So I think the performance is also going to help just those edge use cases people maybe have ignored before too. So all these technologies are growing, they're vastly improving, which is very exciting to see, and they're only going to get better. Like we can talk about Chat GPT on another episode. So
I wrote my entire opening script on Chat GPT. So.
Some other use cases. I won't name the client, but we'll say a major airline. This is one of my favorite clients to work with. Just super exciting, super receptive to ideas. Sitecore is driving their digital signage. It was a case study at Sitecore before. We just spoke at Sitecore Symposium a few months ago in October. What they're trying to basically alleviate for their airports and their staff that manage those these gate signs is automation. How can we cut down on the amount of content that we're editing? How can we automate for certain scenarios? So we're using Personalize and CDP to integrate with their third-party software where the flight data comes from. It's like, hey, if we know there's X amount of kids on this flight, maybe show a video at the gate to basically calm down the kids at the gate, right? So some of those funnier scenarios. So we're utilizing Personalize and CDP to basically be the quarterback and the orchestrator of that data, which I think has been a huge win for us. The technology that kind of comes with that has been very easy to work with, especially being a SaaS platform as well. So those are a few use cases that come to mind. And then we have some others that are legacy Sitecore clients. Again, maybe a Sitecore XP or XM client, moving them now to XM Cloud. And then we're using Personalize almost replace XP, where it's like your page tracking, your goal tracking. We can disable that, reduce technical debt. And that's another thing we can talk about is technical debt. That's a huge focus for a lot of organizations.
Absolutely.
And then we use Personalize to replace some of those XP functions for that MVP. Then we can get, obviously deeper as we go. But I think Personalize replacing XP has been a huge push for Sitecore, and we've seen a lot of success for it at American Eagle as well.
So let's touch on that technical debt piece because I think I know where you're going with it, but let me just tie this word to it and tell me if I'm right. Technical debt and opportunity.
Opportunity, yep, 100%. I mean, organizations now are taking a very hard look at their tech stack. They're seeing these software companies, including Sitecore, change very quickly, but for the better. I mean, if software companies didn't change, they wouldn't be around anymore. So I look at all this as opportunity.
Yes.
You're providing them options. You're providing them more capabilities. So I think a lot of organizations take a look at their technical debt and also their staff internally. Like, what skill sets do we have? What can we support? What do we need to train our people on? What maybe new talent do we need to bring in-house? So as I mentioned before, I think the next 5 years, I think the majority of clients will be moving towards SaaS, or at least have a path to SaaS at least by that point. I mean, people talked about the cloud for 10, 15 years. Sure. SaaS is going to be on a similar path, but probably quicker. But I definitely think there's a huge look at like, hey, should we just keep upgrading this? Or should we look at maybe a longer ROI? That's a huge area we like to focus on is, let's not just look at year one. If we switch to maybe SaaS versus an upgrade, what's the 3 to 5 year cost? And we're really pushing clients to look at that longer term cost because what we're seeing is over 2 to 4 years, costs are evening out, or you're even seeing savings on maybe these rebuilds or migrations to these platforms instead of just continuing to update because you got to factor in your hard costs, the cost of servers, your soft costs, or maybe your people costs of doing the upgrades, maintaining and patching. So I think if you take a very hard look at that, put together a true business case over a number of years, we're definitely seeing SaaS win, and you're getting more capabilities on top of it. So again, organizations are taking that hard look, looking at ROI over a number of years, just even beyond the capabilities is definitely where I think people need to be, where their focus should be right now.
Yeah, and now you're speaking the language of my team a little bit. We'll look at things like ROI, net present value. Look that one up. That's really fun. Payback period, cost of delay. All of these things are something that they're real. It's real data that you can look at when you're making these decisions.
Yeah. No, 100%. And the one piece of advice I give organizations that are looking at this is, with this switch of technologies, with learning curves, some things will be faster as far as time to market in planning, but some things may also be a little bit slower because you also need to take the proper time to pick these platforms, pick an integration method. The nice thing with Composable, you can swap it out later in a much easier fashion, but you can definitely we mentioned in the last episode, moving in an agile fashion, definitely much easier now, definitely much more realization, but there may be things that you maybe want to move a little bit slower on. But the nice thing is you can parallel path things down, not just, we'll say implementing and deploying one large platform. That's the exciting piece for me, is showing quicker returns on things, but also planning out 3 to 5 years ahead has also been huge.
And there might be, and I might be reaching back to the previous question a little bit, but there might be a learning curve too for your tech team, right? Like
100%.
There's a lot of .NET developers going, what should I be doing? So have you has your team had to cross that bridge yet?
100%. I mean, the transition from .NET MVC to say that the new wave of headless and we'll just say React and Next.js is a learning curve. These platforms themselves are a learning curve, but then when you throw out a new technology on top of it, there is a learning curve there. So, for us as an agency, we're staying ahead of it, going through training, making sure people have, we'll just say, practice projects to get ahead of it. But organizations that like to do things in-house, you probably have to factor in a little bit of a learning curve there as you migrate, which is not a problem, right? As long as you factor it in and it's expected, I see it as honestly a positive. And then from the marketing side, right? I mean, there's so many new things to learn, right? The new technology comes out every day.
Right.
So taking a good hard look at your business goals, like, hey, where do you want to be as a business in 3 to 5 years? Instead of just saying, hey, we want this new shiny object.
Yep.
It's it's kind of an old saying, but it's more important now than ever because you don't want to buy one of these technologies, go through the integrations, and then want to switch out again. So I think when people are selecting technologies now, it's actually for a longer term, even though they may not think it is. I think selecting these composable technologies, you're looking at it a little bit longer term than an old DXP. Some may disagree with me, but
no, I think I think you're right. But the technology as a whole is longer term, but the pieces are smaller. So you can. I always think of like hot swapping hard drives. So you can pull out a piece and put a different one in if it's not meeting the business need. And that's why going all the way back to kind of what we were talking about before. It's talking about the business need, the business opportunity, not the product, not the tool itself. What's the opportunity to fix that? So,
100%. I think right now everyone has more flexibility than they've ever had.
Yep.
And we mentioned this on a cooler episode. It's build your own adventure. Yeah. So basically, organizations have more flexibility now than ever to build exactly what they want to meet their specific business need. They're not shoehorned into a solution, which I think is a huge advantage for everybody.
I agree completely. All right, one final question. Sultan and I asked this of every one of our guests, and so John Price, what is your standard value?
Besides a glass of wine keeps the doctor away. No.
that can be it, but if
no, beyond that, I'd say if we just focus back in on the space, I think communication is one of my standard values is clear, concise, honest communication leads to success. Internally, externally, and take it back to just your regular personal life. So I think, when you're having conversations, especially around implementations, things like this, clear, open, and consistent communication is key to success.
I hear the project manager in you.
I still come back to it. I mean, my team likes to say I'm a sales guy now, but there's a PM at heart there somewhere.
Your roots are there. Awesome. All right, well, that is part 2 of our 2-part series that started on Sitecore Water Cooler and is wrapping up here on Sitecore Standard Values. Thank you, John Price, for your time, and thank you, American Eagle, for hosting in this beautiful studio. I will never be able to sit in my own home studio and feel I don't have a cough button at home, so this is an impressive space. So thank you for hosting and letting me be a part of the American Eagle world for a day.
Thanks for having us, Rick, and you're welcome back anytime.
Awesome.